So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. So this month's Innovation Club, which is themed all around drone technology. So it's great to have colleagues on the call, pop-up members, and also partners from across the wider health innovation ecosystem. So a little bit about me. My name's Rachel Dixon, and I'll be your host for today. I'm a business development and innovation manager within the wider research and innovation department here at Leeds Teaching Hospitals. So I'm based in the Innovation Pop-Up, which is on the ground floor of the old Gilbert Scott building here at the LGI. So if you're ever passing, please pop in and say hello to us. So the Pop-Up is a hub for innovation. So it drives collaboration, helps staff develop and test new ideas, and supports health tech companies, all with the goal of bringing improvements to patient care more quickly. So we run these innovation clubs every month, and it's so people can come together, share ideas and explore new technologies. So before we get started and we get into the really exciting part of the event, just a few housekeeping points. So this session is being recorded and it will last around 1 hour. I will finish at 5 o'clock, so I appreciate some people have buses and trains to catch and so on. We're going to hear from 2 key speakers today, followed by a short Q&A at the end. So if you could keep yourself on mute during the presentations, that'd be fab. However, we would like to make it fun and interactive. So please pop any questions in the chat. And then at the end of the presentations, we'll do a bit of a Q&A with the speakers as well. And if you don't get time to answer all the questions, I'll do a follow-up with the speakers and email you after the event. And if you can, please keep your cameras switched on. It's always nice to see friendly faces whilst presenting. So a quick overview of the agenda and what we've got lined up. First, we're going to hear from Alec Jackson, who's Head of Policy and Public Affairs at Appian. He'll also be joined by Hamed Jilani, co-founder and medical director. Appian is a logistics company using drones to deliver faster, smarter and greener healthcare solutions. Alec will share insights from the successful work with Guy's and St Thomas' NHS Foundation Trust, their projects with Northumbria NHS and ongoing discussions with us here at Leeds Teaching Hospitals as well. We'll also have Andrew Edmonds, Head of Innovation at Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, who will be presenting alongside Alec as well. We'll discuss the stages of the Northumbria Drones project, what worked well and key lessons learned. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll then open up for a Q&A session. Before I then wrap up today's session, we're going to hear from Richard Evans, who's Head of Business Development and Innovation here at Leeds Teaching Hospitals Trust, who will share a brief update on the ongoing discussions between ourselves and Appian regarding the drone delivery in Leeds, as well as other innovations happening at Leeds Teaching Hospitals. So that's enough from me. Let's get started. I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Alec. Alec, over to you.
Thanks very much, Rachel, and hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a good Wednesday and looking forward to presenting to you. So I will just get my slides up. If you give me 2 seconds. Just checking you can see that okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, lovely. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, so I'm Alec. I'm Head of Policy and Public Affairs at Appian, as Rachel said. Previously used to work at DHSC in central government. So I've got a civil service background. So here to tell you about Appian and what we're doing. So the main thing that we're trying to solve is healthcare's productivity challenge, which, as you guys will no doubt all be aware, is a real challenge for the NHS at the moment. And to do that, we're using automation, so automated logistics technologies, and how that can help the healthcare system at large to deliver more productive care. So I think the most recent data from the ONS suggested that NHS productivity was down by around 18% from its pre-pandemic high. So, quite a big gulf, and that was a huge impact from the pandemic as well. But it's been difficult to get that back up to where we want it to be. We are using automation, drones, ground robots, as we'll talk about in this presentation, to take away kind of inventory and logistics related tasks that are currently performed by humans or where humans are involved, so that humans in the healthcare system can focus on things that humans should be doing, and those kind of menial tasks can be handed over to robots and automated, reducing costs, improving productivity, but also with benefits around resilience and much more environmentally friendly than other traditional forms of logistics as well. In the 10-year plan that you'll no doubt all be aware of as well, there was quite a useful statistic, which was that if we were able to save 90 seconds from each GP appointment in England, that is the equivalent of hiring 2,000 new GPs. So, those kind of small incremental gains really add up to something at system level. And it's those kind of incremental gains that we're focused on supporting healthcare staff to realize and to build that up into an overall productivity benefit. So why it's important, I've already talked about the productivity problem, enabling faster, more reliable delivery of critical items. So, drones fly from A to B. They don't have to go along ground road networks, which, are often quite old networks, are difficult to scale up and heavily congested. So we can get there much quicker from A to B, reducing costs and emissions. So drones can be cheaper. We know that our guys in St Thomas's network, we're already cheaper, and I'll come on to those statistics later. We also know that we're much greener. So the drones in flight are zero emission. They can be up to 99%, produce up to 99% fewer carbon CO2 emissions. Enhancing patient outcomes. So obviously, if we're able to get things where they're needed to the right place at the right time, we can enhance the ability of our clinicians to perform the best possible care for patients and improve patient outcomes. And we have some case studies that we'll talk about showing that capability already. Scalable while improving resilience. So yeah, the logistics model where we're actually able to kind of scale in future quite easily. We've got a fairly empty sky at the moment, which we're going to be building networks within, compared to ground logistics, which are much more difficult to scale. And the benefit with scaling with drone technology is that as we get more drones in the sky doing more deliveries, the costs will come down even further. And fundamentally changing models of care. So what we found is that by providing on-demand logistics capability throughout the day, we're actually able to change how clinicians give care. So, gone will be the days of artificial cutoff points, inhibiting the kind of the range of activities that can be taken place through a day because you need to get a sample to a lab by X time, and if it's not in the van by midday, you're going to miss that cutoff point and can't do the procedure. So it's actually about changing how we provide care, not just about getting things from A to B quicker. Why it's difficult. So integrating into the healthcare system, very difficult to do. We do it via API integration, which I'll come on to later. But it's something that's quite a challenge for logistics companies to do, and why logistics remains quite sort of removed from the healthcare system at present, which means that it's not as effective at delivering what the system actually needs, and is creating dependencies rather than being dependable for the healthcare system. Hard to navigate to, highly regulated industries. So healthcare, very, very highly regulated, rightfully so. Aviation is also highly regulated, again, rightfully so. And that's why they're two of the, the safest industries when it comes to, the kind of products that we're using, but also the kind of, aircraft and stuff in the sky. Thankfully, because of the regulations and the high safety standards, incidents of safety are very, very rare. And it is hard to secure approval for complex airspace routes. It's getting easier. We were doing a lot of work with the Civil Aviation Authority, the UK's airspace regulator, to make that whole process more efficient and develop the regulatory framework. But it's still in development, and it still remains quite complex and difficult to navigate. So why Appian? We integrate into the healthcare stack. We're drone agnostic, so the NHS doesn't have to have 17 contracts with 17 different drone operators just to get the range of capabilities it needs. You would have Trust would have one direct relationship with Appian, and then we do all the complexity around getting the right capabilities from the drone industry. We're multimodal, so at the moment we're focusing on drones. We're going to soon be doing ground robotics, but we'll also be looking to do wider road logistics as well to provide that full logistics capability, because drones are not going to completely remove the need for road logistics. It's about augmenting and improving what we use on the road, and providing ultimately a single platform for logistics. And that just sets out a bit more of what we do and what we don't do. So, we don't operate the drones. We partner with the drone operators. We obviously don't treat patients. We provide the healthcare logistics, and we do all the regulatory work and manage all the operations around that. So APN is an API, an application programming interface. We join the dots between a very complex and fragmented healthcare system, and on the other side, a very complex and fragmented drone ecosystem, and also now robotics ecosystem that we're doing that as well. And our platform sits in the middle of that, and via integration with EHRs, including Epic, for example, where we've integrated at Guy's and St Thomas's, we are able to automate delivery processes so that we aren't coming in and adding additional complexity to already difficult jobs that healthcare staff are performing on a daily basis. We're making logistics invisible. That's the overall aim. Automated, invisible, and very, very easy to use. So going on now to kind of our experience today, and I think at this point I'll bring in Andrew to talk about one of the trials we've done previously, which was up in the northeast of England, Northumberland.
Great. Thanks, Alec. And hi, everyone. So I'm Andrew Edmonds, the Innovation Director in Northumbria. I think when Alec and I were sort of having a conversation about what's the best way to tell a story, it's kind of made sense to do a bit of a blend and do it chronologically rather than dotting about quite a lot. So yeah, that's why I guess we're sort of deviating slightly from your agenda, Rachel, but whilst also creating the same impact. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, please, Alec. Great. So we had 2 phases, but only 1 trial, which I shall come on to. So phase 1 was, it feels like ages ago now, and that's because it probably was ages ago. So as it kind of says there, handful of flights per day, blood samples and pharmacy products between Wansbeck General Hospital, which is by Ashington, and then Alnwick and Berwick. Those sites were chosen partly because of their rurality, but also partly because they were outside of Newcastle Airport's controlled airspace. So I suppose there was a little bit of a kind of testing the waters in terms of what worked from an aviation point of view, what worked from a healthcare logistics point of view, and sort of using that to build the concept out. I think overall we thought it was really positive. We got some really good interest from it. There was a kind of reputational boost from the innovation. Staff were very motivated by it and thought, oh, this is really exciting. We did get some pushback as well, like, why are you doing this and not, paying us more money or something like that. And we had kind of good responses, I think, to all of that. I do think the technology and logistics were very good. It was, I think, and nothing's perfect, so it's probably a bit unfair to say imperfect, but it was relatively early stage and a bit clunky, as you might expect from something that was a kind of very early sort of proof of concept. The flying and everything worked fine. It was just, I guess we were sort of in a little bit of a, and you can see that picture of us, we're in a field, basically. That field is like a 5-minute drive from the hospital site. The one on the top picture is at Berwick. That's the mouth of the Tweed. It's not the ideal place of where it would be, but that's where we were allowed to park, and that's where we had access. We're allowed to land, sorry, and that's where we had access in terms of the landowners and things like that. So it was sort of taking it and trying to get it to work and fitting it in with what we could do, recognizing where it was in that stage. But it generated a lot of interest, and I think was really positive. Go to the next slide, please. Yes, so that just gives you an idea of the map. So you can kind of see the bottom end of that purple line on the map. That's Wansbeck. The middle one is Alnwick, and then the other one is Berwick in the far north. You'll note that we were mostly flying over the sea, which I think made it a bit simpler for people than just little sort of darts inland to go over land. And I think again that's where it went. We'd have to say developed, and you can see the bag and it fitting in the drone there. Like there was a lot, I think, on both sides, both for the trust and also for Appian. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but we were both like working out what's the best way of, trying to do this. So it was a really, really helpful starting point, designing the bags, temperature control, all of that kind of stuff, and doing a lot of validation around that. Okay, next slide. Yes, as part of that, because the infrastructure was in place, and Hamad, Alec, you guys might want to jump in on this. Appian had done and made some really positive links with NHS Blood and Transplant, and there was a study that was published later. So actually, after the trial was finished, it was maybe about summer 2024, I think, by the time it was written up. But actually using it to compare and make the case for the ground, air transportation versus ground transportation, but also looking at the quality of the products and the fact that there was no kind of adverse impacts on that. And as it says in the summary, cold chain was maintained throughout that flight. So again, you're sort of proving the concept of in a number of different ways. So that was, I think, a really really positive news story and outcome from that first trial. Okay, next slide. So phase 2 is where things got a bit bigger and a bit more complicated, and then we ultimately ran into a few problems, which I'll talk about on the next slide. So what we were aiming for was to go bigger, more inland, covering different sites into Newcastle's airport's controlled zone, a greater range of delivery locations, and also a greater range of products as well. The distances there are were longer than going up the coast to Berwick, so it was a sort of building it out, and it felt like the next logical stage. We also had I think a really good partnership with a US-based drone company called Zipline, whose technology was slightly different to the one that you saw on the previous slide. That was a sort of up and down, helicopter type thing. If you go into the next slide, Alec, you maybe don't have to click on the YouTube link. It's there in case people want to follow it. But it was essentially a great big catapult and almost a kind of smaller light aircraft. So you can see it's, going left to right. It's on this catapult, it's launched in the air, it flies and then drops its payload with a parachute, and then returns and lands in, it's caught, sorry, in a great big net, which is what's happening on the right hand most two pictures. So a very different kettle of fish, really. Obviously slightly different capabilities because you're taking products out but not back, and we were talking about having one nest in a central location, and I think I would probably describe Zipline. I mean, it's always fascinating working with companies that have a different background and a different culture to you. I'm thinking of NHS colleagues on the call. There's a different culture between Northumbria as an NHS organisation to Appian, and then with Zipline as well, and learning quite a lot from that in terms of what the priorities and how business is done and things like that. So yeah, really really kind of informative, I think. You'll notice, and this is a critical point on the previous slide, sorry, Alec, that the net that's captured, there is a large structure above 5 meters in height. And the reason I mention that is it is above that level where you need planning permission. Now we can move on to the next. Slide. So ultimately, phase 2 didn't end up happening. We gave it a really good go. We pushed it, and I think got it. Really helped to push forward. I think in particular the aviation acceptance of some of these things. We did find it a lot harder in phase 2. The kind of general aviation community, the sort of like private pilots. It was a much more mixed response. We had good support from Newcastle Airport, and they could kind of see the the positives from it, and we're very permissive around it. We also, I think, were pushing because of that structure, and we weren't actually using a hospital site, although it was close to one of the main hospital sites. It needed planning permission, and I think what really happened there is the site that was chosen was kind of embroiled in, potentially, it says in the next bullet point actually, but mixed in with housing plans for that land. So I think there was already quite a lot of community objection already to work happening on that site. And I think the drones and putting it in, next to a bridle way and things like that, it just, we kind of ran into difficulty quite quickly, really. And I think the point there, it says it in the second bullet point, it was a good location, but it wasn't the perfect location. And I think we had conversations at the time. I think had it been the perfect location, we would have been up for that conversation with stakeholders and really held firm. But because it wasn't perfect, we thought that actually the thing to do was to not push it, and not take it for where not take it forward. I think the partnerships we had, I talked about the cultural kind of differences and what we learned from that. I think probably the bit about the competing priorities, I don't ever felt that I had different priorities to Appian. I think Zipline really wanted to move it very quickly, and I think felt like it was their project and that they were driving it, when actually we're the local partners. It needs to be us kind of making that decision. But Appian were a fantastic partner, and really, we wouldn't have been able to do any of it without them. And I'm not just saying that because Alec and Hamad are here. I should just be clear about that. Also, we had to look at ourselves. The inventory management that we have within the trust, the maturity of that is pretty poor. We're trying to put a sort of cutting edge technology into pen and paper, and not really having the headspace or the investment or the ability in one go to fill in that gap and really take the benefits on it, really kind of maximize the benefits from the logistics technology. So we pushed that probably as far as we go, but it ended up being a little bit kind of, I think, beyond what our capabilities were, and I think that probably showed a bit by the by the end of it. Where we've kind of left it, I don't know if this is on the next slide or not, I can't remember where I put it. Yes. So this is where we ended up. So we had a community engagement event. We drew the planning application. We wanted to look for other sites. We did look at other sites, but none were really kind of fitted that sort of, that perfection doing it. But we still wanted to pursue and kind of, as I say, keep our oar in. We could see the benefits from it. We could see the response from staff. We could see the opportunities and wanting to be a partner with Appian, and that's where we've left it, really. So Alec and I will catch up kind of relatively. It feels like it's been a while though, Alec, but we'll catch up relatively regularly. And actually, when there's the right time and the point for us to pick up the next trial within the Northeast, potentially with other trusts, for instance, Newcastle and Gateshead, we'll be right there to support it and be a part of that. But I think there's a sort of slightly naff metaphor about baton passing. Like, I felt like we had the baton for a bit and we took it as far as we could, and then we had to pass it back and pass it on to Guys and Tommies, really. But that's often the way, I think, with these new technologies, and for all the reasons that Alec talked about in his slides. When there's something new, there's question and comment about it, and we're trying to work that up in the right way. And I think that's me, but hopefully that was a helpful overview.
Yeah, really helpful. Thanks, Andrew. And I think just a few things on that. It just goes to show the the challenges that we as a innovative startup and working with an NHS trust to deliver this came across, and just the amount of learning that we got from it as well, and the way that that's been factored into how we're doing things now and how we've been able to improve things. So I mean, just to focus on a few things like the aviation and airspace design. As Andrew said, we ended up going over the water instead of over land to ensure that we were able to actually get the airspace approval. It made it more straightforward. We've now been able to get an airspace approval to fly in the centre of London. So I think that shows you the kind of the progress we've been able to make with the Civil Aviation Authority, the airspace regulator, building on a lot of the learnings that we got in Northumbria. Around kind of stakeholder engagement, both with the kind of aviation stakeholders like the general aviation community, but also with local stakeholders in relation to, in that instance, the planning process. Being able to listen to and properly reflect on the views of the local stakeholders is really important to this. There's actually a regulatory requirement from the CAA to engage with the local community ahead of drone operations, which we obviously take very seriously. And the approvals that we're able to get are conditional on there being, an effective community engagement approach and routes for feedback. We had a challenging time in Northumberland, but gained a lot from that process, and I think we made the right decision in the end on the back of that. But then take it to Guys and St Tommy's. We've been operating since October last year, and we've had no criticism, no negative feedback coming in from the local community. Different because we didn't have to get planning permission like we were trying to do in Northumberland, but still a positive step forward, given the drones are in a busy city, more visible than when flying over kind of rural areas. Definitely take that as a positive. And
if I can add, I think it's so important to recognize that Appian learned a lot as well from like the healthcare side, the packaging, the validation, the dangerous goods. All of that was so helpful in taking that, building on it at Guys and St Thomas's, and the hope is that we can come back, as exactly has been alluded to. We're hoping to kick operations back up with in the northeast with Newcastle, and then expand over exactly back with Northumbria. And actually, it's such a lovely kind of positively vicious cycle, where you deploy with one trust, you gain loads of learning, you then go and deploy with another trust, you gain another set of learnings, and then you can come back much more stronger, much more equipped with better regulations, better understanding of how we can make this work. So the fact that we have paused and are coming back after many years back to the northeast is only a good thing, because of the amount of experience we've gained in the meantime. So it is really exciting to come back, and it is what we're working on.
Yeah, and just to touch on the NHS BT point as well, we are building on what we did with that bit of research in the northeast, and are now looking at different use cases with NHS BT, including urgent blood deliveries, organ transplant support. So that gave us the kind of foundation to go and look at those really impactful use cases with NHS BT, which we're very excited to be doing, and should have some positive things to say about that very soon. I think we've got a question. Is it Meninda? Sorry, I can't see your full name because it's cut off on my screen, but do you want to come in?
No, you got it right. Thank you for a really interesting presentation, exciting new technology. My question is around the sort of cost benefit of the technology. Did you do any sort of kind of health economic analysis of this? Because it feels like there's quite a lot of infrastructure that you need to sort of implement before you start to see the returns on it. I just wondered if you've got a sense of that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think Hamad, you might be better placed to answer from Appian, because I wasn't actually with Appian at that point. But then also bring in Andrew just to talk about Northumbria, because we've done subsequent work with our other projects on that front.
Yeah. So
Matt, do you want to go first?
The short answer is yes. Capital intensive, infrastructure heavy, but that's because that was for back then we were working with a UK-based drone operator who didn't have the same scale and didn't have the same regulatory capability. Since then, we partnered with other organizations that are world leading, so Zipline and Matinet and Wing. Wing is a fully owned subsidiary of Google, that have much more capable technologies that can go from roof to roof. So instead of having to deliver to a location 5 minutes away, so in that sense, we were kind of at the behest of the drone operator's capability, which knock-on effect was that it made things a bit more expensive. So one really, really valuable learning experience from that whole project with Andrew was that it was very clear that we had to come back with a more fine-tuned technology and drone operator that was more scalable, regulatory capable, technologically capable, and therefore would be cheaper.
Yeah, and we did. So I think it really helped us in the projects that we're talking about in terms of the cost to the trust. So our contribution was that there was a financial element, but it was from an innovation fund that had come from NHSE, so it was sort of ring fenced to spend on innovation. So we weren't taking money out of anything else, and it was specifically designed to, kind of, I don't like the phrase pump prime, but someone said it to me earlier in the day, so now it's just in my head, so I do apologize. But to be the kind of starting point and to pump prime exactly these sort of projects and see where they might go. We obviously recognize that that's okay for a kind of initial pilot, and we also were supported by this SBRI Small Business Research Initiative,
right.
which got a significant funding, and we couldn't have done it without them, that's for sure. And Appian applied, and we supported that. And that's exactly what those grants are for. I do think there will come a point in this technology where the reliance on grants and kind of ring-fenced innovation fund will change, and it will be able to be done, and the business case will wash its face, and actually trusts will be able to make those investment decisions. I think there is a productivity benefit that comes from it. We were beginning to model that, and we wanted to obviously test it to the biggest scale in phase 2. Unfortunately, we didn't get the chance. I'll just pick up Chris's point, if I may, and I'm conscious because I know Alec and Hamad have got some other slides that they want to go through, and so maybe suggest that we move to them after this. But Chris, you had a question about negative feedback from staff in terms of replacing roles that staff were undertaking. It was a question, and it was definitely a concern. I think we were quite very easily able to say, look, this isn't going to replace people's jobs. This is going to be a supplemental thing, and there is, an advancement and a productivity benefit. And actually, we're able to, rationalize, and it's part of our cost improvement program anyway. There is an ongoing process of rationalizing and ensuring that all of the different operations, especially logistics operations, because we cover such a big patch, are as efficient as they can be. But I think people felt that there were too few. They were overloaded and overworked at present, and they saw it more as this is there is a benefit. We've got some help, and if we can automate, the things that can be automated, well, let's do that. And actually, we can be focused on the things where we can add the most value. So yeah, it's but it's not to say that there weren't those questions because there were.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer to that question from Andrew, and I think we fully support that. And we've had similar kind of questions at our other projects, at Guy's and Tommy's, and now where we're looking at doing a network with Great Ormond Street, and also where we're looking to deploy ground robots in the hospital to support with logistics within the hospital. Similar kind of questions. So we're working with very closely with the portering teams there, and it is, as Andrew said, about augmenting what they already do and enabling them to do their jobs better rather than replacing any staff. And it's why they're such critical stakeholders in designing how we do this effectively, both drone delivery and the intrasite robotics. So we'll get onto that in more detail later, but it's a really important part of the equation, obviously. So the next trial we did, and I'll just talk about this quickly, was in Dublin. So here we worked with a drone operator called Wing, and they are an American company. They're part of the Alphabet family. They've done over 500,000, probably approaching 600,000 now, deliveries worldwide in Europe, America, Australia, and now, of course, in Britain. And there, I think we operated for about 3 or 4 months, and we were working with Medtronic, who are one of the biggest suppliers of medical devices to the NHS, and that was delivering to 2 private clinics in Dublin, and supporting, looking at the ability to give on-demand delivery to reduce the amount of consignment stock that needed to be held on shelves. And so both the healthcare organizations had timely access to the products they needed, but also the commercial supplier Medtronic was able to reduce the amount of stock that it had to produce and put on shelves, that ultimately there's a lot of write-off, so a lot of waste, and could provide a more kind of timely supply chain. So that was a really good, successful little trial, but we closed that down sort of March or April last year, to focus on Guy's and St Thomas's. So this is our kind of flagship project in London, flying from Guy's Hospital right next to the Shard over to St Thomas's Hospital, which is just over the river from Parliament, and that's where you can see the drone flying with Parliament in the background there. Pretty cool photo. So we delivered over 6,000 patient samples. along that route, and you can see the kind of lab teams that we've been working with and already brought online. We've done a pharmacy demonstration, and next in the next phase, they're the kind of pathology and pharmacy teams that we'll be looking to operationalize. We've now done a business case with the trust to support the scale up. So we're looking to add on 2 new sites. The first of which is the pathology centralized lab run by Synovis in Blackfriars, and the other is King's College Hospital down in Denmark Hill, which are important parts of the trust's pathology network. In future, we'll also look to link in other sites in the trust network, for example, Royal Brompton Hospital and Harefield Hospital. But for the next phase, we're focusing on those 2 additional sites. The business case has shown like pretty immediate financial benefits relating to the logistics. So, for example, we are 28% cheaper than the dedicated urgent ad hoc couriers that they use to ferry samples between sites. We also are 98.4% fewer CO2 emissions along that route, which is really positive from an environmental perspective. And we'll be doing work in this next phase to, as we were looking to do in Northumbria, to model the productivity benefits. So we've already started work on that with the trust, looking at how much staff time we can save, how that relates into financial benefits for the trust, but also into changes to the way care is provided and the productivity of staff in the trust. Resilience, from a resilience perspective as well, we've already demonstrated the ability to mitigate the impact of equipment downtime, things like that, which are helping the trust to provide care continuity when events like that happen. So there's a video here. Unfortunately, we tested it before everyone joined and the sound isn't working, but I'll play it anyway because it gives you a good idea of how this is actually working, and I'll talk over it for you. So that's the drone actually flying between the hospitals. It's about a 30 to 35 minute journey on average by road. It's under 2 minutes using that drone. We will soon be moving to a different drone operator called Matnet, which is slightly slower, but still under 3 minutes. So still a huge time saving. And that's helping to accelerate the testing turnaround time that for the urgent pathology samples. So as you saw there, I'll just take it back a step. The drones are loaded by a ground operator. That's the ground operator works for the drone operator. Oh, sorry, my screen has just skipped to something else. Let me get back to it. Right, can everyone still see my presentation? Yeah. So it's loaded by a ground operator, and it's winched up onto the drone and then securely fastened in underneath as it raises to its cruising altitude. Why is it about 70 meters altitude, and it's flying at about 110 kilometers per hour once it gets up to full speed. So that's it flying over the London skyline. And then once it gets to the other side here at St. Tommy's, it'll switch to its vertical takeoff and landing rotors, and it'll start to descend, and then it winches down the pack, which has samples inside. And there's Hamad talking about it. But the once it's landed on the roof, it's picked up by porters.
You can definitely skip that bit, Alec.
Yeah, I was going to. Yeah. It's picked up by porters on the other side and taken down to the lab. So that's the kind of end-to-end journey. At the moment, porters are moving it between the lab to the rooftop on the Guy's side, and from the rooftop to the lab on the St. Tommy's side. We will ultimately look to be automating that part of the journey as well, so that porters can focus on the tasks that they would otherwise be performing in the hospital. But at the moment, we're fortunate to be working with the portering teams, and they're helping us to provide that end-to-end journey. So I'll talk more about that, but just quickly to flag that we do have support from central government and particularly to support the aviation regulation development. So the Regulatory Innovation Office, which the government set up to kind of remove unnecessary red tape and unlock growth, they launched from the rooftop at Guy's, which is great to have Patrick Vallance and Lord Willets along to do that. And we've been working really closely with them, with DFT, with DHSC, and also obviously the CAA to progress that regulatory work, which is all moving forward nicely. So what we've built, this is the actual platform that users would be interfacing with. So, gives you the kind of the orders that are booked on the way, completed or cancelled. It shows you the delivery slots that are available. It shows you the kind of metrics for how much CO2 is being saved and total deliveries, etc. So it gives you a good overview. When you actually click to create an order, it's a matter of a few clicks and then entering a bit of information. And you can see that in the top right, someone using our platform, but that's not good enough. We are looking to automate that as much as possible, both using just by simplifying what we're doing, but also using agentic process automation, which is essentially a clicking robot, as it were, which takes a lot of these menial little clicks away from the human actually having to do it. So ultimately, we'll be making that as straightforward as possible and saving as much time as possible in that process. And in the bottom right, you can see the way it interfaces with the portering app through the EHR Epic at Guy's and Tommy's, and that basically is automated to task porters to either take samples from the lab to the rooftop for delivery at Guy's, or to pick up from the rooftop and take to the lab at St. Thomas's. And that's been working really effectively. This is the dashboard where you can see kind of the range of deliveries that are being made, and you can look at the kind of benefits being accrued through that. We're developing this all the time and making it better based on feedback that we're getting from the trust. So the kind of insights that trusts want to see and how that can be factored into how they operate. So that's an ongoing process. Booking and resilience. So this is what it looks like once you've made a booking, and this is actually a good case study to look at. This was an urgent troponin sample where the analyzer at Guy's Hospital was down, so it couldn't be used. So they needed to get the troponin sample over to the lab at St. Thomas's for rapid testing. From the point at which the order was placed to the point it got to the lab on the other side, it took 29 minutes using the drone. When we worked with the teams in the trust to see how long it would have actually taken by road based on the availability of the couriers, and it would have taken over 2 hours in comparison. So we're able to rapidly speed that up, and that troponin sample, which is often used in the diagnosis of cardiac arrest and care around that, was able to get tested on time and had an impact on that patient's care, which is really positive to see. So we're helping to improve resilience at the trust through that kind of way. And the other ways is where we're able to provide end-to-end traceability. So we are able to show where your sample is at every single point in the delivery, end-to-end, which avoids situations where doctors and nurses are ringing up to say, where is my sample, where's my test result? And sometimes either it's not known where it is, and on some occasions it's actually been lost in the ground logistics network, which is obviously not something we want to see, and something that we're able to mitigate against with our system. And we also provide proof of delivery, obviously chain of custody, extremely important. So we will make sure that you can see something has been delivered, and you can get the reassurance around that. So I talked about agentic process automation. This is essentially what it looks like. This is all just being done automatically without a human having to take all these steps. So you can see the kind of time that collectively, incrementally builds up, and you can save from that. So ground robotics, this is new for us, but really excited about it. These are the things that we're going to be deploying within hospitals to support intra-site logistics. So moving pathology samples between labs and wards and theatres, and also pharmacy products from hospital pharmacies out to the wards wherever they're needed. And also, once we have it up and working, to link up where our drones are landing and taking off from with the lab, so automating that part of the journey. So we've got Clive on the left, which is kind of our demo model, and then Rosita here with the wheels. The wheels are just the best modality for maneuvering around environments. That robot can actually jump over walls and things like that. It's really quite impressive. We don't need it to do that, but that is what we'll be deploying at Great Ormond Street, either I think towards the end of this year is when we're planning to do it, which is really exciting. To the next slide. So this is what the software will look like. So we know exactly where each robot is. We can see the route that it's taking. We know what it's carrying. We know what its battery level is like and when it needs to be coming into charge. We know we've got visibility of what it's seeing so that it can, if there's any kind of obstacles, it's able to navigate around them. Ultimately, a pilot can take control if it's needed, but the point is that this will be fully automated and doing, navigating around the hospitals by itself, having inputted the blueprint and the map of the hospital into its system. Yeah, and we're also able to design the kind of hardware that goes on it. So the backpack, as we're calling it, for where the medical products actually sit in the robot. So this is actually the design that we're working on based on feedback from the trust for how they want to be able to drop the pathology samples in. So we're working on that for them. But I mean, as a principle for everything we do, not just this, we design things around NHS needs. So if we're told, we need a canister that carries this much volume and can cater for these kind of temperatures, we'll go and design it. We've got a head of validation, James, who is excellent at this kind of stuff. And basically anything the NHS needs, we'll provide it. And as Andrew mentioned, for that Northumbria trial, we designed that payload for the drone. We've done another one for Guys and Tommies, and we're working on new versions as well for the expansion of those projects. So this is the kind of range of software and hardware that we're going to be providing and integrating with across the platform that we provide, existing hardware in trusts like telelits and AGVs, agentic process automation to take away those kind of menial clicking activities and speed things up, and also the hardware. So, the robots, droids, drones. And this is what it looks like today versus the vision that we want to get to in the future. So at the moment, humans involved in quite a lot of these steps. And currently it's only automated and using a robot for a couple of them. In the future, we want the human to be taking the blood test, but everything else at that point can be automated using robots or software. So that's where we want to get to and deliver the kind of benefits that we can provide on productivity through that automation. I think that is the end of the presentation. Yeah. So happy to take questions.
Lovely, thank you, Alec, thank you, Andrew and Hamed as well for that great presentation. We have got quite a few questions in the chat. I don't think we're going to get time to go through them all, but I will collate them all, and I'll do a follow-up email to the speakers and get those answered for you. I can see a few have been answered during as well, so thank you for that. But I will just pick a few out before we move on. So we've got Janine, who asked about drone pilots. Who and how will these people be recruited into this industry, and what type of licensing will be required?
Sure. So drone pilot isn't, so it's called a pilot in command is what we call them, but they're not flying the drone. So you don't have someone sat in a tower kind of with a remote control, flying it through the air. The drone operates within airspace that we input into its software. It can't go outside of those boundaries, and within it will automatically design its own routes. It will randomize those routes, so it's not flying over, someone's house every single time. But it is always within that airspace. But it does it all itself. It's automated. The pilot in command can be anywhere. There are instances where drone operators have had a pilot command in another country, for example, but is able to take ultimate control over the drone and make a emergency landing if that is required. But there is multiple layers of redundancy in the drone's operating kit. For example, the wing drones that were used don't need all of their propellers to be able to fly safely. Some of them can be redundant if they happen to malfunction or something during flight. But they're all very rigorously tested. So, we haven't had an instance of that actually happening. And also they're programmed to be able to do safe emergency landings on designated emergency landing spots under the airspace that have already been confirmed. So, it's very, very unlikely that this would ever happen. But if it does, we have safe procedures for it to come down. But so we don't really have pilots flying them. We have people that can take ultimate control for safety purposes if we need to. And the other side of it is that all of these, any kind of special speciality roles associated with the drone technology and not things that the NHS is going to have to deal with. That's the model that we're creating. Apian does that with the drone operator partners, so that the NHS doesn't have to deal with that complexity.
Perfect. Thank you, Alec. There is quite a few questions in the chat with regards to security measures, and I know we've touched upon this, and things related in terms of, you know, drones being intercepted by people with malicious intent and so on.
Yep.
So yeah, quite a few different questions coming through about that topic, if you want to address that.
Can I take that briefly as well? It's just to say that the Civil Aviation Authority, which is managed by the Department of Transport, are the people that can or have ultimate authority of authorizing drone operations. And so they are the ones that assess all forms of safety. And that's not just safety in the air, that's safety on the ground risk, air risk, that's software systems, that's can the drones be hacked, spoofed, shot down? Is it safe to fly, both in terms of the location, but also to birds and nature reserves and over prisons? The whole process of applying to the Civil Aviation Authority and then reviewing hundreds of pages of documentation around the operator's technical, operational, and risk assessment methodology is insanely massive. It's one of the most complex things that you could do in the aviation industry. And so there is lots of licensing processes involved, lots of gates, lots of things that you have to do to prove to and demonstrate to the Civil Aviation Authority that what you're doing is safe and has lots of redundancies. So that kind of aspect is fully taken care of, and you should have full confidence in the Civil Aviation Authority of this government that it would do the right thing. To give you an example, the government, the Civil Aviation Authority certainly wouldn't let drones fly directly opposite the Houses of the Parliament if it thought there was any risk, any meaningful risk of safety breach in such a sensitive location. So we obviously had to get agreements from the London Met Police, the security services, the counter UAV team, London's air ambulance, all other forms of airspace stakeholders had to say, we are happy, we think this is safe, and we're happy with this going ahead, in order for the CA to then say green light. So it's a very serious consideration, safety aspect. I wouldn't worry about it in the sense of all of that is taken care of by that regulator.
Perfect, thanks, Hamed. And another interesting spin actually on that side of things. So what about logistics, transporting viruses? So dangers of drones which are compromised while transporting. So any precautions against pathogens being accidentally released and so on?
Yep. So we have to meet all forms of dangerous goods regulations. This is dangerous goods by air. So this follows the IATA regulations and the UK CA's in application of those. So we have to follow PI 650 air transport of dangerous goods specimens UN 3373. We don't plan, and we have not, we do not, and we probably never will, unless very specifically required by government, to ever fly UN category A specimens, which are like Ebola viruses, life-threatening. So if we are going to deliver specimens, they're either going to be exempt human specimens or exempt products, like blood products are considered exempt, or they are going to be considered category B UN 3373, which themselves have a much lower risk to third parties. So we have done a whole cases of assessments and literature reviews around the risk associated with a canister of samples dropping out the air if it's comes into contact with people, if they're carrying things like HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C, which are obviously the three most common bloodborne viruses. So we do a lot of work on that. And rest assured, all of that is safe in order for the Caldecott Guardian, the chief medical officer, the chief scientist of an organization to give us approval to do all of that. And where needed, you would have to get authorization from the CA to have the dangerous goods approval as well.
Perfect, thank you. That's great. That's really interesting. I'm probably going to wrap it up there for Q&A. Just conscious we've just got 5 minutes left, and we're just going to have a brief chat with Richard. So yep, thank you for the presentations, and we will get the other questions answered. But for now, we'll hand over to Richard, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you. Just noted that we had someone with a hand up. I don't know if we wanted to just very quickly bring James in, just because he was patiently waiting with his hand up there, and I'll just take a couple of minutes at the end. Thanks.
Sorry, James, didn't see you there.
That's all right. Thanks for that. Just a disclaimer, I'm an academic from the University of Leeds, so probably come at this from a slightly different direction to most people on the call. I was curious about the sample holders that we're using. Is there anything you put in them, as in tracking device and security systems? I was just wondering if there was anything you actually had to put in there to keep, just in case it fell off or something like that. I know that might be unlikely.
We don't have to from a regulatory perspective because the drones themselves are tracked and there are other mechanisms in order to demonstrate safety and compliance to high standards. But yes, we can. So there's nothing stopping us from putting the equivalent, as it were, of an AirTag or a Amazon Tile in some of these.
I guess my point is that if you have the drone and the package separated by mistake.
Yeah. So the short answer is that we don't need to. So we haven't. So right now at Guy's and St. Thomas's, there is no way to independently track the canister from a geolocation perspective. But we actually do have plans to embed this for future trials. So to combine both temperature tracking and location tracking and vibration tracking all at the same time is something that we're working on within packaging. So obviously very important for things like controlled drugs, pharmaceuticals, very sensitive pharmaceuticals as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So perhaps with 4 minutes left, and I know Rachel wants a very quick minute just to wrap up things at the end of this call. It's been absolutely fantastic, I will say, very thought-provoking, and thank you very much for everyone who has joined and all of the speakers. Please note in the chat we've also shared a feedback form and I think access to our mailing list as well, so if you want to come along to future innovation clubs on different topics. For example, we have one on robotic surgery coming up next month, and one from our partners in January, Medipax, who will tell you about the support that they provide to NHS Innovation 2. Then please do check out those links and sign up for future calls. The one thing I very quickly wanted to share is we're part of the Insights programme, which is a national NHS England funded programme to try and streamline innovation adoption in the NHS. Andrew, Northumbria, also part of the same programme, which was how we first came across a lot of this case study of the use of drones in healthcare. There is some interesting workshops that are just coming up around a concept called innovation passporting, which is another work stream coming out of the Insights programme. And I just wanted to briefly share my screen to highlight these upcoming workshops to primarily, I suppose, our staff within the organisation. And apologies, my screen is now going extremely slow, so hopefully you can see that in front of you. So just wanted to flag these really. So this is around the innovation passport, which is due to make innovation hopefully easier within the NHS. The aim of the passport is to reduce duplication and delays in adoption of new innovations by collecting the information that innovators are repeatedly asked for across different trusts, so NHS teams can use it to inform and make quicker and better decisions. So hopefully generally streamlining things full stop. I won't go through all of this in detail. You'll see a bit more information about the tool itself. There are some upcoming engagement workshops on the 20th of October, 28th of October and the 4th of November. Perhaps we can share this with everyone who's registered for the call after today. And if you actually wanted the policy lead, Fiona McKenzie, to come along to one of your local meetings, she'd be very happy to do so. And perhaps from an Appian and supplier perspective, I'm sure this would be a great opportunity in the future for you to engage in some of this around this National Innovation Passport process as well. So Rachel, I'll leave it there and hand back to you because I see time is running out, but I just wanted to flag that to the audience. Thank you.
Perfect. No, that's fine. Thank you, Richard. No, so we're bang on 5 o'clock. So very quickly from me, just a massive thank you for today's session to Alec, Andrew, Hamed and Richard for taking the time to, to speak and share your expertise. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you to everybody that's attended as well. Richard mentioned about the things in the chat, so the feedback form, the innovation mailing list, and then also our next innovation club, which is on the 19th of November, and that's all around robotic surgery. So it fits quite nicely after having a little bit of an insight from Appian about that as well. But no, sorry if we didn't get a chance to answer your questions. We will be doing a follow-up, but for now, have a nice evening and thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thank you.